All right. Hi, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Madison. I'm the program manager for the Amazon QuickSight Learning Series. And today I'm going to be presenting a topic on Amazon Q. It's going to be scenarios with a Super Bowl ads demo. Okay, so just to cover the agenda, I'm going to do a quick introduction to scenarios with Amazon Q, and then how to enable scenarios if you're new to QuickSight or if you're an existing QuickSight customer. I'll give a brief background about this demo, and then we'll get into the in-product demo of scenarios, share some learning resources, and then answer some questions at the end. All right, so if you don't already know, Scenarios by Amazon Q in QuickSight was launched in reInvent in 2024 of last year. It is a way for us to simplify complex analysis, specifically with your business problems using Amazon QuickSight and your datasets. So this is agentic scenario analysis, which basically allows you to write in a prompt in natural language and guides you through the actual steps that Q is using to get to the answer to your prompt. And then in the end, it'll give you a list of recommendations. And you can kind of see that flow here in this GIF that's provided. And we like to say that this is purpose-built for BI. So this eliminates a lot of the manual work that you have to do with other software and also just has it in a unified environment all within your Amazon QuickSight account. It's also reusable and extensible, so if you need to come back to any scenario in the future, you can go ahead and do so by finding it on your homepage in QuickSight. And you can also change parts of your scenario to modify based on your team's suggestions. You can also extend it to add any other insights that you want to explore. All right, so with that, I'm just going to quickly go over how you can enable scenarios. So first, we'll go over existing QuickSight accounts. If you are in a QuickSight account already, you must enable Amazon Q, and it's a $250 per month fee for data Q&A, and then you can use that across all your users who are provisioned inside your Amazon QuickSight account. And then all you have to do is if you navigate to this top icon here in your QuickSight account, you should see this button that says Preview Manager, and then from there you can toggle on Amazon Q and QuickSight. And then if you're not an Amazon QuickSight account owner yet, you can go ahead and sign up for a 30-day free trial. And with that trial, you're actually able to enable Amazon Q and QuickSight, and you can provision up to 4 pro users. So that can be either Reader Pros or Author Pros, any combination of the two. And then from there, those people will be able to use the scenarios capability in their QuickSight account. Okay, and again, if you have any questions on this, please ask in chat. I'll go ahead and answer them at the end of this session. All right, and then the last step for that is you can just upload data sets that you want to use, and you can create dashboards and scenarios from there. Okay, so now I'm just going to jump straight into the demo and give you a brief background here. So this is our background. If you don't know what the Super Bowl is, it is the largest American football championship event of the year. It's actually this weekend on Sunday. The average audience watching the game is 123 million viewers. So you can imagine that for an advertiser, this is a very unique opportunity to potentially reach a mass amount of audience and new users for any single ad that you premiere. And the scenario here that we're going to use is using historic NFL Super Bowl advertising data. A creative consulting agency is analyzing how they should advise their finance client on the following criteria. Which ad appeals do they make during the advertisement based on viewer sentiment of past ads? And then how much should the company spend based on industry data and ad performance from previous ads? And so a brief look into the data set that I'm using. Again, this data set is available on Kaggle, which is a public website. And I've manipulated it a bit to add some spending and ad sentiment numbers here. So this is partially fictitious data. The spend here is not accurate. I just put in random numbers, so it might not look exactly what is currently the ad spending for the industry. And then same with ad sentiment as well. So that's just a call out. So in this data set, we have the years 2000 to 2020. We have brand and industry. We have the spend amount, which is in dollars. We have ad sentiment, which is a rating that customers gave the ad from 1 to 5, 1 being they strongly disliked it, and 5 being they loved the ad. And then we have some binary metrics here, which include funny, 1 yes, 1 or 0 no. Does the ad show product quickly? 1 yes, 0 no. Is the ad patriotic? Is there a celebrity in the ad? Do they use danger? Do they have animals? And do they use sex? Okay, so now we're going to jump into the demo, and let me go ahead and swap screens here. And so this is a dashboard that I have in QuickSight, which has Super Bowl advertising data. We see a lot of graphs. This one here is showing the ad spend of industry over time, based on these 6 industries we have. And then I have this pie chart. You can see the shift between blue and red. I tried to keep brands in the same industry the same color. So you can see the shift between, I think it's alcohol to automotive. Yep. And then this chart here is showing the sum of spend by brand. So we see Bud Light and Budweiser have the most. Average ad rating. So we can see why we want to go to finance because E-Trade is the lowest. And then we have some different metrics here to show spend. And then this bottom portion of my dashboard is showing all the ad appeal visuals. So we can see here by industry, the ad spending, and then the different ad appeals here for each brand. So objectively, Bud Light just has the most ads, which is why it says a big increase there. I have that spider chart, some scatter plots for each ad appeals. And then we can kind of see here that the number of ads ran by Budweiser is still the most from all of them. And then lastly, this line graph here showing the ad spending by use of ad appeals. In 2017, we see a huge drop. All right. So from here, this gives a really great high-level view of our company and the overall advertising industry. But now let's begin our scenario and focus on just finance for our customer. So I enter this scenario environment and I begin with a question I have. So I'm typing here, what ad appeals and spending should the finance industry, we'll say, run in future Super Bowl ads or higher ad sentiment, because that's what we're focused on. And then from here, I'm just going to select my data. And in this portion, I'm just going to select the visuals that are relevant to my question. So I want to see the spend because I want to get that. Let's see. I also definitely want to include this ad rating visual. And let's see, I also want to include some of the ad appeals metrics. We'll go ahead and click those. I'll click all these scatter plots here. And then, yeah, let's also include that. Okay. So now I've added my data and Q has made that data set, which is based on the data set I've uploaded to QuickSight. And it's going to now upload that into this scenario analysis. So while that's happening, Q in the backend is basically uploading the data sets for me to use, analyzing the data, and finding the relevant key points within my natural language prompt to see how it can create an analysis from there. And then I also want to point out where you see this button, it says upload file. You're also able to upload other files from your desktop, which you can do at any time during your scenario. And so let's begin this analysis. Q right now is giving me suggestions. So I can either go ahead and go through this question and copy and paste that and press submit, where it says describe what you want to analyze next. And then it'll just jump through the analysis. Or I can wait for Q to provide me these suggestions based on my prompt and the data and give me kind of a brief look into the insights following from my prompt and see if I want to explore any of those. So I'm going to go ahead and wait for those to load up and see if I want to explore any of the suggestions that Q has provided to me. And then we'll just wait for that to load. Okay, great. So we see here the first one says, what ad appeals contribute most to higher ad sentiment for finance? Show the trend of ad spend and ad sentiment for finance. Which ad appeal has been most frequently used by finance with high ad sentiment? That seems really interesting. How would average ad sentiment change if they increase their use of funny appeal? It's really specific. Compare the average ad sentiment for spend in finance for the top with the top three other industries. All right, so this third one immediately looks the most interesting to me. I do like that first one, so maybe I'll come back to that, but I definitely want to check out this third one here. This seems the most relevant to my use case. It's pulling out the high ad sentiment, which obviously is the goal, and then we're trying to see which ad appeals had some high reviews from customers. Okay, so step one. First, they're going to focus on the ads just from the finance industry. All right, great. So it's taken the data set that I've uploaded and it's filtered it just for finance and the brand, which there's only one in this case, which is E-Trade. And it says that it has 13 Super Bowl ads from finance. And now they're going to analyze the most frequently used ad appeal for high ad sentiment ads. And we'll see what that pulls up. Okay, so step two, identify the finance ads that were well received with a score greater than 3. And if you can see this first data set, there might be a problem. The ad sentiment only goes up to 3. So we'll see what happens. All right, so Q has said no finance industry ads with sentiment scores are higher than 3. To answer the question, we might need to adjust. So let's go ahead and modify this. I'm going to go ahead and change this block here. So I'm going to press this pencil tool and I'm going to instead say that we want to use all brands instead of just finance. And we'll see how that looks for high ad sentiment ads. So instead of using finance brands, I'm going to say use all brands to find ad sentiment that's greater than 3. And then that way, even if we are looking for certain ad appeals, we can see generally what all the advertisers are doing to see if there's any common trends between ads and ad sentiment. So that's why I chose to modify it in this way, but again, I could choose other ways to modify it as well. Okay, and then let's see what Q loads up here. All right, so again, similar step 1, identify all the Super Bowl ads with high sentiment score above 3, and now it's doing it across all industries. And then, so with this step, it's going to again filter the data and just keep all the ad sentiment with 4 or 5. And now it's telling me there's 155 ads with a score higher than 3. Alcohol industry dominates these high sentiment ads with 88, followed by beverage and automotive. Most of these ads had high scores, 4 or 5, which that's a given because it's a 1 to 5 scale, but that's great. This looks good. And then now it's uploading it, step 2. All right, so it's going to determine how often each type of ad appeal is used in these high sentiment ads. And let's see what that pulls up. Okay, so it says that high sentiment ads use funny the most, used in 70.3% of ads, followed by animals and danger, but those are about half of the use of funny. However, the correlation says that it is weak, so that's interesting. It says the strongest being a slight negative correlation for animals, so that's a bit odd, with a slight positive correlation for celebrity. So even though celebrity wasn't commonly used appeal, it says that it has slightly positive correlation. So I'll keep that in the back of my mind as we move forward through this analysis. And then you can see here, it's made those calculations and then given us an overview. And then step 3, it says generate a chart to visually represent how often each ad appeal is used in successful ads. So we can kind of see the stark difference between the amount of funny used and then all the other ones. So maybe that's going to indicate to me that we want to lean into funny as well and do what everyone else is doing. Or maybe we do want to separate ourselves from funny and do something else to stand out. So this is interesting. And then we also see here patriotic is used the least. So maybe that just doesn't do well with customers. Okay, and then step 4, summarize our findings and provide recommendations. Okay, so it says that there's several key insights that could be valuable for finance industry advertisers. And let's go ahead and see what the overview of those insights may be. Let's see here. Go ahead and quickly look over these. So it first says that humor is king. The funny appeal was used again 70.3% of the time. It's the most popular. Visual appeal matters. Animals in danger were the next common ones. These might seem less applicable to finance. Maybe true. There's some weak correlations here. This suggests the execution of ad concept is more likely more important. So that's good to know. Industry adaptation. Given the finance industry didn't have ads with high ad sentence scores, we can consider using humor, incorporating subtle elements of danger or animals metaphorically, like bulls and bears, or protecting against financial risks. That's really interesting. That's something that I wouldn't expect Q to pick up on, but it got those metaphors between bull and bear, which I'm assuming it's thinking of stock market, and using that to give me a suggestion. So that's pretty cool. And then it says spending strategy here. Given the high cost of Super Bowl ads, finance brand should focus on creating high quality, memorable content, prioritize humor. Let's see, visual storytelling. Yep, that makes sense. And then we have celebrity partnerships. Consider partnering with trusted celebrities who can add credibility. So that's interesting. Multi-appeal strategy, combine multiple appeals. We will probably end up doing that. And then focus on execution. Given the weak correlations, prioritize the quality of execution over specific appeals. Yep. And then test and refine. So that's good to know. Test concepts with focus groups. And then it's giving me some limitations as well. Analysis is based on historical data, might not reflect current trends. Yep. Okay, that makes sense. And then, yeah, briefly looking over this looks good. Okay, so these recommendations get us to a really good starting point, but I think now I want to analyze a different suggestion. I'm going to go back to the first block that I saw Q suggest and click on that. So we're going to go ahead and go with what ad appeals contribute most to high ad sentiment for finance industry. And I already know that the finance industry might not have high ad sentiment, but let's see what ad appeals they're using. And the reason why I'm doing this as a separate thread is so that I can compare side to side between the original thread that I went down and this one to see if I can make any differences just by going side by side and not having to do different sheets or going through different software products to be able to compare the two. Okay, so we see it's step one. First, focus on the finance industry and calculate average ad sentiment. So we probably know it's going to be low. And let's see what it pulls up. Okay, yes. So the average ad sentiment is only a 2.1, which is at a 5-point scale, suggesting significant room for improvement. I would agree. And we see here it's actually rounded that 2.1 because the average is 2.08, which we can see at this overview here. But let's see what else it loads as our next step. All right, next, analyze how different ad appeals relate to ad sentiment. Create a visual representation of these relationships. Okay. And then it'll be interesting to see what type of visual Q makes here. All right, so it says for finance, patriotic themes show the strongest positive correlation. So that's interesting because we just saw that patriotic themes weren't highly used in the high sentiment ads, followed by use of sex and danger, both 0.2. So again, not a super strong positive correlation, but strongest of the ad appeals for finance. And then we can see some negative correlations as well. All right, and so I see it made this data set with those correlations, and then it also decided to go ahead and make this heat chart here with the correlations that line up to each appeals and comparing them to each other. So let me go ahead and scroll down so you can see that. And this is good, but it doesn't really tell me a lot about the correlations between different appeals. There's nothing that really stands out to me here. Maybe the use of funny and some combination of patriotic ads. And yeah, maybe patriotic and funny, use of sex and funny, but nothing that really stands out to me. So I'm going to keep going. Step 3, focus on the most promising ad appeals and see how they impact ad sentiment. So it's pulled out the top 3 here, and it says that it's going to show the use of the impact with and without. So that's kind of interesting. The customer score jumped from a 2.25 to a 2.33 for the rest, which again, 2.5 is still not what we want. We want something probably in the 4 to 5 range. So I don't know if this is telling me a lot if we should invest in any of these ad appeals, but it's good to know. And then now let's jump to step 4. So it's examining how ad spending relates to ad sentiment. So it's created this scatter plot. There's a moderate positive correlation, 0.39, between ad spend and ad sentiment. But when I look at this chart here, it doesn't show me any significant correlation between spending and sentiment. I can see some higher sentiment ads with the lower spending, but it also has lower sentiment for the same. So again, this is kind of all over the place for this company, probably why they hired us fictitiously. But let's see what this step 5 says. Okay, so we'll now summarize our findings and provide recommendations for future Super Bowl ads. So number 1, ad appeals. Patriotic themes show the strongest positive impact on ad sentiment. Okay, still not great ad sentiment scores for either of these. Says humor has a very slight positive effect, while use of animals has a small negative. Ad spend, moderately positive correlation. So even if we increase our budget, maybe it wouldn't have a large effect on our ad sentiment score. Okay, here are recommendations. Prioritize patriotic themes. Okay, that's good to know. Maybe I want to invest there. I'm not sure yet. Consider incorporating elements of sex and danger. Still don't know about that. While humor is common, doesn't significantly boost sentiment, which is interesting. And then considerations, while these trends are notable, statistical significance is pretty low. So that's great to know because I'm not really confident with investing in either of those ad appeals. All right, let's see what I want to do here. So I think I'm going to go down and continue exploring this. But now let's say that I want to explore some other ads or ad appeals. So I'm going to say, can you model what the ad appeal, or sorry, the ad spend or sentiment would be if finance used instead, let's say celebrities, and I'll go with, yeah, let's try patriotic. All right. And then I'm just going to compare that with other brands' ad sentiment. Okay, and I think this combination would be interesting. It didn't really mention celebrities in this thread, but I remember in the other thread it recommended us use celebrities. So I'm going to see if patriotic, which was our highest ad appeal, and the use of celebrities changes anything with our ad sentiment. And again, this is just Q modeling this, so we'll see what it comes from here. I'm not really sure. So step 1, analyze the impact of celebrity and patriotic themes on ad sentiment across all industries. Right, it's gonna load up. Okay, so interesting. It says its use of either ad appeals or both ad appeals had an average of 3.8, while using both have a slightly lower average of 3.6. All right, so that's higher than finance for sure, and I think that's interesting. Also might be dependent on the brand, but that's good to note that those generally trend towards higher ad appeal or higher ad sentiment ratings. And then we can see again, it's concatenated a new data set and then given us an overview with at the bottom the ad type, celebrity or patriotic, and the average sentiment for each. So 3.78, which it rounded up to a 3.8. And then let's see. Also, just to note, when you see at the top that it's that loading bar in the purple and the blue, that means that Q is still loading up the thread before you begin going down. If you wanted to instead wait for it to load the whole analysis, that's what that means. Okay, so let's continue on. And then at the bottom here, both celebrity and patriotic, 3.58, which it also again rounded to 3.6. And then we see here, it's loaded up this visual for us, these vertical bar charts. And then let's see step 2. Examine the combined effect of using both celebrity and patriotic themes in ads and determine how much each appeal individually contributes to ad sentiment. Oh, and it says it's reloaded its step here. So that might be because Q didn't find anything meaningful, so it's going to recalculate the step 2 and find something else that we might want to go down instead. So now it says estimate how much ad sentiment could improve if they use both celebrity and patriotic themes based on the performance of the themes across all industries. And it's noting here that it knows that we have an average sentiment of 2.1. If they use both, it could potentially increase to 3.6. So that's great. That's much higher than the one that we saw before, which was only a 2.5 with just patriotic. So maybe a combination of the two is where we want to go. And then step 3, provide comprehensive insights and recommendations. Great. Focus on the potential benefits of using both themes as well as other effective strategies. Okay, that's great. Let's see. So it says here it's going to give us a few insights first, similar to our last thread. We see here the first is saying the current state. So again, the low rating, potential improvement by incorporating both. We see a 1.5 point improvement. That's great. Number 3, ad appeals. Patriotic themes show the strongest positive impact, as we saw before. And let's see. And we also have ad spend. There's a moderate positive correlation there. Let's see. Between ad spend and sentiment. That's great. And then some key recommendations. Okay, so it's recommending us, first and foremost, to incorporate both themes. And I think that's pretty prevalent in the data that we saw. So maybe I do want to go down that route, but it also says prioritize patriotic themes and also consider use of other sentiments. I'm still a bit iffy on that one. Reconsider humor in animals. So that's interesting. I do think humor is something that could be an interesting place to invest in. And then it's telling us using a balanced approach and continuous evaluation. All right, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and try now to go down a different thread and see if we can go any further. So now I'm going to type in my own question. And now I want to know if finance increased their spending, since we haven't explored that yet, on ads. And let's do I'm going to just do arbitrary 3 million. How much would add, let's say, sentiment, change? And we did see that spending didn't have a super high correlation, so there might not be anything worth noting here, but I do want to just include this as well so you can see how spending may affect the different ad sentiment and how Q can model things. So let's see what Q pulls up. Okay, so step 1, first, focus on finance industry ads, calculate their average spending and sentiment. For finance industry ads, the average spending was 7.8 with an average sentiment score. We know it was low. So this is looking good. So we're increasing the spending to about 10 million for average spending. So we'll see if that changes anything significantly with our data. And then again, we see this data set that it's loaded up with all those ads and the calculations that it's making below. All right, let's go ahead and keep on going through here. We'll keep scrolling. All right, so this is step 2. We're going to visualize the relationship between ad spending and sentiment, measuring how strongly they're related. So the correlation coefficient between ad spending and ad sentiment for finance is 0.4, indicating weak positive relationship. So I just want to point out here, if I'm a business user, I might not understand exactly what correlation coefficient means. Same with the previous threads as well. But I do understand that saying a weak positive relationship. So from here, if I wanted to send this to my business analyst to go deeper, I could have someone who's more well-versed in the technical knowledge and be able to manipulate data better to go further with this. But at a high level, this is really interesting for me and easy for me to comprehend just from looking at this analysis, which I couldn't have done before scenarios. So that's really cool. And I just want to point that out. Like, we want to still continue to keep human in the loop interaction with scenarios. So although I'm getting these values, if I don't understand what they mean or I'm questioning them, I would go back to one of my more technical employees and have them dive a little bit deeper into this data. All right, so step 3 here, moving on. Again, this is where I would definitely have a data scientist come in. This is creating a statistical model with the coefficient and intercept, and then predicted sentiment by ad spend and actual sentiment. So we can see this scatter plot here, which is giving me the different data points. And again, maybe this doesn't really look like much to me, so I would maybe send this to someone else to look into deeper. So step 4, now it's going to estimate how much ad sentiment would change. And note here it's stopping. It says this step would typically involve using a regression model to predict ad sentiment. I can't provide specific insights or recommendations. Would you like me to explain the general approach? And so I think I want to go through that. So instead, I'm going to ask it to run a general. Let's see what it says. Yeah, a general, what type of word does it say? A general approach to see this analysis. Because I don't have any more data that I can provide. Again, just using that one data set that I had loaded. But if I did, I could upload it here. So I just want to see generally what would happen. All right, and then Q is just loading up the next step. Okay, so step 1, we'll now estimate how much the ad sentiment might change with increased spending, summarize findings, provide recommendations. Okay. And then it looks like it's combining several steps into one here. So let's see what it gives. It says the 3 million increase in spending is estimated to improve ad sentiment by only 0.2 points. Okay, so that's not great. With a weak correlation of 0.4 between spending and sentiment, focusing on creative content rather than increasing ad spend may be more effective for Super Bowl ads in the finance industry. Yes, I would have to agree. If we're only increasing to a 2.23, that's still not what we want to be at. So I think we're just going to focus on the different ad appeals and we'll go down those other threads. All right, and it looks like that's all it gave us. So this is the conclusion of where I'm going to keep on going with the scenario analysis. I think we see here just how deep I can go and the different options that I can have between extending the analysis, modifying, and being able to share this with my team. So it gave us a really high level view of the industry overall, specifically down to the finance industry, and then it gave us some really good in-depth statistical analysis, which I would bring back to my data scientists. And this is to highlight the whole capability from end to end. Again, I highly recommend checking out scenarios in your own data set. You can do things on your own, like I said in the beginning, but uploading new data files from your desktop, which you can do at any time, share it with your team, and then also edit for future use.